Hey, welcome to my Warframes Where They Are Now series, a little series I've had brewing in the back of my mind since the early days of Warframe, quote unquote. I'm going to put this little intro at the beginning of every video in this series. If you've heard this once or more, feel free to skip it. This is just my opinion and is not guaranteed to be fact. Remember, with Warframe, everyone plays at least a little different from each other. That's why there's 52 frames as of making this intro, of course. That being said, I do plan on being as objective as I can with this series. But bias will always be a potential problem, and will definitely shine through in certain episodes, if not all. Now, that being said, I hope you enjoy the series. October 15th, 2023. Sorry this one's late, I haven't been feeling well the past couple days. I'm sure we've all been there. Anyways, today we're talking about Ivara. Don't really have a clever sting for this one, so let's just get right into it. Base stats on a level 30 Ivara Prime are 125 armor, 300 energy, 225 health, 450 shields, and 1.2 sprint speed. Ivara's passive is she senses enemies within 20 meters. I actually find this kinda nice. It's nothing crazy, but it's semi-useful. Our first ability, Quiver, actually has 4 different options. You get to choose one of these arrows and fire it accordingly. She has an arrow that creates a area of effect that allows whoever standing inside of it to be cloaked. If you're good and you hit one of your allies, you can actually just straight up cloak them as well, which is kind of nice. There's the noise arrow, which, I'm gonna be honest, why? I know it lures enemies or whatever, but that seems more like a meme than anything else. There's also the sleep arrow, which I don't usually fuck with, but I could definitely see a use case. And then there's the zipline arrow, which I use probably way more than I should. I'll get into that when I get to the build section. But yeah, no, like it's kind of neat having the different arrows. It's like a Swiss Army knife, but with a bow, I guess. It's also easier to shoot these with her 4th ability, which we'll get into a little bit later. As for her augments, she actually has 2 for Quiver. She has Power of 3, which Quiver fires 3 arrows and consumes 20 more energy. I don't usually use this myself, however, it is absolutely fun to use as a meme. Because even more dash lines, but yeah, it's alright. There's also Empowered Quiver, which Dash Wire grants allies 100% critical damage, and Cloak Arrow has 100% chance to prevent status effects. I don't typically use this one either. I will say I could definitely see a use case. I honestly should be considering it. But honestly, I'm typically the only one who ends up on my dash wires when I use it, so I don't know. Granted, yes, it does help me as well, but still. Her second ability is Navigator. You set it up and then the next bullet you fire you actually get to control. It doesn't work with every single gun, so it's going to take some experimentation, but it is absolutely fun. There's no real practical use for it. Many moons ago, a YouTuber by the name of Triberus actually found out a way to use this with the Zenistar to effectively just kill everything in Index, but they also reduce the amount of energy you get in there now, so it's not really viable anymore, sadly. But I also kind of understand why, because it's kind of busted. It also has an augment. It has Piercing Navigator. Each hit increases the projectile's critical chance by 10% up to a max of 50%, and the projectiles also get +3 punch through by default. Again, I wouldn't really mess with this because, well, Navigator is also one of those meme abilities, but if it were more practical, this would definitely be a good one to have for it. If you guys have a practical use for Navigator, well, this is definitely an augment to throw on it, so bear that in mind. Alright, so her 3rd ability is Prowl. She stays invisible as long as she stays slow and keeps using silenced weapons. However, thing of note, if you're using a dash wire, it doesn't matter if you're fast or slow. It ignores that. You can also steal from enemies by being, up close to them. For weapons, I do recommend using, the Baza Prime, or if you like bows, well, then you're set. But obviously the mod Hush exists as well, so if you want to use your favorite gun, you can. You just have to sacrifice a mod. But anyways, as for the augment, Infiltrate, she is able to bypass laser barriers and gains 25% movement speed. I know of a few people that run her for Spy Vaults. I personally stick to Loki, so I don't know if that's why, or if there's something I don't know about her. Feel free to leave it in the comments if there is something else, but I will say it's not bad for that anyway, but I don't know, I like having my CC, so I stick to Loki for that. As for her 4th ability, she has the Artemis Bow. It's a shotgun bow that effectively chooses what angle to shoot the arrows on based on how long you control it. It takes a little bit to get used to, but once you get used to it, it's actually pretty damn good, and it's a lot of fun to use. It being an exalted weapon, it has, you know, its own mod capacity and whatnot, which is nice. And it has pretty solid stats. As for the Augment Concentrated Arrow, Arsmo singles a single arrow that has a 50% critical chance on headshots and explodes in a 7-meter radius, but it removes the punch through. I do use this on one of my builds, aptly called Concentrate. It is actually a lot of fun. I do like using the shotgun bow, which is primarily what I use, but I do enjoy a good bit of using Concentrated Arrow, especially with the Incarnons forcing me to get better at getting headshots. As for my build, I actually have a strength and duration build with slightly negative efficiency. I didn't want to go too low because, well, the Artemis Bow takes out of you based on shot as opposed to a duration. Granted, oftentimes efficiency is more effective than duration when it comes to drain abilities, so bear that in mind. That's something I forgot to mention with Equinox, because she is one of the frames that's like that. But anyways, yeah, I find that high strength is definitely a good thing to have. But yeah, I don't really need range all that much, mainly because when I run Ivara, I typically run her by myself. I also typically run mostly the spider method, if you will, which is just, you know, fill the room with dash wires and go to town. I mainly use her for, you know, sit and stay missions. As for my Artemis Bow build, yeah, this is definitely not the best build out there. You can absolutely find a better one. I plan on reworking this at some point, but it gets the job done, so eh. And when I do, you'll probably see this in the next time we talk about Ivara, which I don't know when that'll be. But part of the reason I started this series was actually because I've noticed that some of the frames that didn't get reworks are feeling very different nowadays because of the newfound existence of Steel Path. Matter of fact, before Steel Path, I'd say Banshee was pretty damn good, but now Steel Path exists, and I'm like, okay, not so much. But such is the way of, you know, the game. But yeah, no, as you can see, even with this definitely subpar build, I'm still doing 85,000 damage, which is probably why I'm still killing shit on Steel Path, mind you, but yeah. So how does this frame fare for Deviri? Well, for regular Deviri, she does alright. She's definitely not the most fun to have, in my opinion, but she's alright. As for Steel Path Deviri, she's okay. She's not anything special, but she's not, you know, worthless either. I will say that, you know, the nice thing about Exalted frames in Steel Path Deviri is the fact that I don't want to say it doesn't matter what weapon you get, but it does help ease the pain a bit as far as that goes. So if you get stuck with a regular flux rifle and a stug, you're not fucked. But yeah, no, like, she's definitely not the best, but she's not the worst either. She's definitely not my first pick. To be honest, I've only used her, like, once in Steel Path Deviri because of that. But I also do have a Steel Path build in every single frame, so, at the end of the day, that's probably an odd circumstance as far as I'm concerned. I'm sure that if, you know, she's one of your built frames and you don't have a whole lot of built frames, then obviously she'll be a pick, but that's situational at best. To be honest, I don't even know why I'm including this. Ivara is a frame that I seldom talk about, but she is absolutely a blast to use. She's definitely not my favorite. Hell, she's kind of somewhere in the middle as far as, you know, worst to best for me. And to be honest, I think that's kind of what holds her back, at least for me. I do use her somewhat frequently, mainly when I'm fucking around in Simulacrum with my friends with friendly fire on, because she's just absolutely fun to do that with. But yeah, no, she's not bad. She's not particularly holy crap either, but yeah, that'll be about it. Thank you all for watching, and have a good one.